Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now Anthony Joshua is in training with Lawrence Okolie. Lawrence Okolie put a picture up on his Instagram of him training with Anthony Joshua in the ring. Now obviously Anthony Joshua's next opponent is Kubrat Pulev, and I don't know whether they are sparring, but ultimately Lawrence Okolie would be quite a good sparring partner to prepare for Kubrat Pulev. Not the same, but still he has the height. And I mean, Lawrence Okolie is eventually going to be a heavyweight anyway. So obviously it's positive to see Anthony Joshua in training. Eddie Hearn did explain that Anthony Joshua's camp will begin very, very soon. If not, already has begun. Now, we do know that Anthony Joshua will be present for Dillian Whyte versus Alexander Povetkin. So I wouldn't imagine camp is in full flow yet, because if it was, he would not be attending that event. So ultimately, this fight between Anthony Joshua and Kubrat Pulev will definitely happen in December. We are being told December 5th or December 12th. Those are the dates that this fight will happen. Either one. It's one of those two dates that this fight will happen between Anthony Joshua and Kubrat Pulev. Anthony Joshua has already begun his training. He never stopped during the lockdown, but obviously he cannot spar and do certain things like use the weights, and realistically all he was able to do was shadow boxing, and I would imagine it was quite similar for Kubrat Pulev. Now, both fighters have had more time to prepare for one another, so maybe that means we get a better fight, but ultimately, I believe that Anthony Joshua is going to be just too good for Kubrat Pulev. I think that Kubrat Pulev is a good fighter, a good boxer puncher, has a good jab, and a good right hand as well. Power in both hands, but ultimately, Anthony Joshua has a better jab, a better right hand, better hooks, and he chooses better shots as well, especially on the inside, those short shots. I don't believe that Kubrat Pulev really likes working on the inside. I noticed against Hughie Fury and many of his other opponents, when on the inside, he would rather hold than work. Anthony Joshua is going to want to work on the inside. I know that against Andy Ruiz Jr. in the second fight, he did not do that, but then again, he was fighting an inside fighter. So what do you do with an inside fighter who realistically cannot box with Anthony Joshua? He needs to get on the inside. So the best thing for Anthony Joshua to do is to tie him up, not allow him to use his inside fighting game. So that is what AJ done in the rematch with Ruiz. Whereas in the first fight, maybe he was trading on the inside. And for the most part, he did not come out on top. He did in the first exchange though, when he knocked Ruiz down, but he lost his shape, got a bit sloppy, got caught with a shot he did not see coming. And the rest is history. But against Kubrat Pulev, Pulev does not necessarily like working on the inside and trading on the inside. He would rather hold, have the referee reset them, then go back to a distance and get his jab flowing again. 1-2, and ultimately Kubrat Pulev does like his hooks, but ultimately he doesn't throw them as fluently as Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua likes to throw hooks, but again, against Andy Ruiz Jr. in the rematch, you don't hook with a hooker. So Anthony Joshua is not necessarily just one fighter. He's not one-dimensional. He can do it many different ways. He can box at range, mid-range, long range. He can fight on the inside as well. He can also do a bit of grappling in there as well. So Anthony Joshua can do it many ways, and most champions should be able to do that. It's only when you get a one-dimensional fighter who can only fight one way, like maybe Andy Ruiz Jr., he can cause Anthony Joshua problems because he is very good at one simple style. Not simple, but you know what I mean. One style he is good at that can trouble Anthony Joshua, being small, getting on the inside, fast hands. That was what caused Anthony Joshua the problems. Nothing much else from Andy Ruiz Jr. He punches hard, yes, very fast, but ultimately it was his ability to get on the inside when he was hurt, have the durability to go through those punches Anthony Joshua was throwing his way, particularly a big right hand that landed on Andy Ruiz Jr. after he had been on the floor. Kubrat Pulev would not be able to deal with that. Now, Kubrat Pulev has been explaining that he will beat Anthony Joshua in the same way Ruiz did, which is not really going to happen because Kubrat Pulev is a very different fighter to Andy Ruiz Jr. So him saying that he's going to beat him in the same way, Kubrat Pulev cannot do that because Kubrat Pulev does not fight on the inside like Andy Ruiz Jr., not as fast, maybe not even as powerful as Andy Ruiz. So Ruiz was able to exploit maybe a few weaknesses in Anthony Joshua only because Anthony Joshua allowed him to. Will he do that against Kubrat Pulev? Well, Anthony Joshua has never really struggled with that stand-up European style. If Pulev tries to box with him, Anthony Joshua will come out on top because Anthony Joshua is a better boxer, more technically sound than Kubrat Pulev. Pulev does make a few mistakes, and usually it's his positioning and balance, something that Anthony Joshua will definitely exploit. I notice Pulev often comes over his front foot. He does not want to be doing that against Anthony Joshua, and him saying he's going to exploit the weaknesses he has seen in Anthony Joshua in that Ruiz fight, well, he does not possess the style, the skill, the abilities in order to do that. That's not to say that Kubrat Pulev is not a good fighter, because he is. He is a good fighter, a solid B-level fighter, but ultimately he will come unstuck trying to exploit those weaknesses in Anthony Joshua because he does not have the abilities in order to exploit those weaknesses, because he doesn't have the speed, maybe not the power, and definitely not the ability to work on the inside like Ruiz. And another big thing, the durability. Andy Ruiz Jr. was able to take punches and dish out his own. Kubrat Pulev has to be careful how many punches he takes from Anthony Joshua, because if he takes too many, he will not be standing in front of him for very long. You cannot stand in front of Anthony Joshua and trade with him. If Pulev tries to do that, then it's going to be a very early night in this fight on December 5th or December 12th, dependent upon when this fight happens. Kubrat Pulev is a solid fighter. As I said, a solid B-level fighter, but he cannot expect to go in there and exploit the weaknesses he believes is there and the weaknesses he believes Andy Ruiz Jr. exploited, because Andy Ruiz Jr. had the style to exploit those weaknesses. Kubrat Pulev does not, and the only reason those weaknesses were there was because Anthony Joshua allowed Ruiz to do the one thing he wanted to do, which was stand there on the inside and trade with him. Kubrat Pulev, if he gets on the inside and tries to trade with Anthony Joshua, it won't come out well for Pulev, because Pulev likes to grapple and hold on the inside. Anthony Joshua likes to work on the inside. He could not do it against Andy Ruiz Jr. in the rematch because, as I said, that would be a style that would cause him problems, because Andy Ruiz Jr., his only chance was to get on the inside. Take that away from Ruiz, then box him, and Anthony Joshua ultimately schooled him over 12 rounds. It's not necessarily just doing what you do well in the ring. It's about taking away the things your opponent does well. And that is what Anthony Joshua done against Andy Ruiz Jr. in the rematch. And that will be a vital lesson that Anthony Joshua has learned, to take things away from his opponent. You don't hook with a hooker. He done that in the first fight. You don't box with a boxer. You make them fight. Anthony Joshua made Ruiz box in the second fight. Look what happened. So Anthony Joshua knows that you have to take things away from your opponent. And that is what he will do with Kubrat Pulev. Anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on this? Anthony Joshua back in training, getting ready for Kubrat Pulev. December is going to be the month. The date not penciled in just yet, but this fight is on. Anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below. Leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new. Thanks, guys.